The Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast, with your host, Rich Decker.
Hello, and thank you for taking some of your valuable time to listen to the show. My guest for this episode is Tim Westbrook. Tim is the founder and executive director of Camelback Recovery. As he describes Camelback Recovery, it's not just a treatment center, but rather a structured, drug-free environment for men and women with a common goal. I really enjoyed listening to Tim's story. He's a person who has hit many bottoms, and there were some pretty dark valleys, and that all began with a near-fatal car accident when he was in college that left him with a severe brain injury that took him several years to recover from, and that was just the beginning. And although he lived in the abyss for many years, his ascent out of it and to where he is today is truly amazing. And if you're one of those people that think that people just don't change, well, then you need to hear Tim's story. It gives me great pleasure to present the hero's journey of Tim Westbrook. Enjoy. Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you for joining us on the Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast. I'm very excited for all of us to hear your story. I know a little bit about you, but I don't know your whole story, so this should be exciting for me, at least. So let's start at the beginning of your journey. Tell us about your childhood, where'd you grow up, and some things that your parents... I ask everybody this question because I'm just a curious person. What were some of the principles that your parents instilled in you that you still carry with you today, for better or worse?
Okay. First off, hi, Rich. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. I really, truly appreciate it and looking forward to it. I would say some of the values that were instilled in me growing up were just that, number one, family is everything. That's how it's always been my whole entire life. Family is everything. And we have a huge extended family. There's, our immediate family, my two sisters, my mom and my dad. And then I've got my cousins and my aunts and my uncles. And we always got together at birthdays and holidays and Christmas and Thanksgiving and everything, all holidays. So we spent a lot of time with our family. And so that was really important. Faith, I grew up as a Christian and have a Christian background. And so faith in God has been important in my life, and even more important today, actually. And hard work, especially my dad always was just a great example of somebody who worked very hard. And I carry that with me today.
Let me ask you a question. In the world we live in now, even though we're more connected to everything, it seems like we're less connected to each other. Do you still maintain that family get-togethers and everything like you used to when you were young?
Yes and no. When I grew up, everybody lived in Southern California. I grew up in Orange County. I grew up in Cerritos, and my family members lived all in Orange County. So it was really easy for us to get together. My grandparents lived in Orange County. So as time has gone on, everybody's moved away. So my grandfather had three brothers. And my grandfather's brother married my grandmother's sister. We had just a huge extended family. Now, my grandfather's brother, he moved his whole entire family up to the Sacramento area, Grass Valley. So they all moved up there. So we still kind of saw them, I would say at least yearly. And then even up until this last year, we had a huge Thanksgiving get-together, which was kind of like a family reunion that we did. It was every other year. And we did it, I think the first year we did it was like 1993. And then this last year was the very last year. It was just amazing. We had probably 50 family members that showed up, and my uncle had a big house and he was on 5 acres, and we would all show up, and some people would have motorhomes and some people would bunk up in his house. He had a nice sized house and lots of beds, and people just kind of stayed everywhere. I mean, it was just an amazing way for us to get together every other year. So I would say that although people have moved away, we've still somewhat have stayed connected. And with social media, it's allowed us to continue staying a little bit more connected in the sense that I get to see what everybody is doing these days. I get to see my cousins and my second cousins and their kids and just what everybody is up to these days. So it's nice.
We're both old enough to remember that when we were kids, if you wanted to contact someone, you either had to make a phone call or you actually wrote a letter.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's kind of gone.
Yeah, that's gone. Completely gone. I mean, I'll tell you, trying to send a letter these days, it's like postage is so expensive. I'm like, man, I don't even want to send mail. It's too much money.
I don't even know. What does it cost for a stamp? I don't even know.
It's like, I don't know, 53 or 54 cents or something like that. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And and you don't even know if the person's going to open it and read it. Huh? And it takes days to get there. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, but the world has definitely changed.
So you were a Southern California kid. Were you a surfer? Did you grow up by the ocean?
So I lived in Cerritos, which was Orange County, and that was kind of North Orange County. It was about, I don't know, half hour from the beach. And I spent a little bit of time going to the beach, and I had some friends that liked to bodyboard. And so I spent a little bit of time at the beach growing up. But then between 6th and 7th grade, so I don't know, I must have been either like 11 or 12, my parents got divorced, or that separated and then divorced. And my mom moved with my sister and I up to Oxnard, which is Oxnard, California, which is kind of by Ventura, Oxnard is a beach. So when I moved to Oxnard, I was obviously a couple miles from the beach. And so we spent quite a bit more time at the beach and growing, in junior high and in high school. It was something that I spent time at the beach regularly, a couple times a week, at least.
When you were growing up, what did you envision for Tim? Where did you, when we were kids, we all like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be this or that. When you grew up, what did you want to be?
Well, I remember when I was a kid, like elementary school, my dad was a general manager of a rental yard. And this rental yard, they rented out like forklifts and scissor lifts and, equipment rental. My two uncles, my uncle Kenny and my uncle Carl, owned, it was called H&H Rentals. My whole entire family worked there, like literally. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, everybody worked there. I mean, probably 50 of my family. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but everybody worked there. My dad was the general manager. So my two uncles owned it. My dad was the general manager. So I saw him as a boss, as a person that told people what to do. And so that's what I saw myself doing, is being a boss or being a manager and telling people what to do.
For what, in general, or?
In general, that was it. I don't remember beyond that. I just remember that I thought I was going to be a manager or a boss, I think. And that was growing up. And I think once I was in high school, I always saw myself being successful in whatever that meant. And then I always saw myself going to a 4-year university. I always saw myself continuing to move on, although I was kind of all over the place as a high school student. When my parents got divorced, from 6th grade to 7th grade. So now, and my dad was pretty, I don't know if I want to say strict, but he was kind of and I wouldn't say that he ruled with an iron fist, but he was a rule follower and he expected us to follow the rules, and he was the disciplinarian. My mom was very lenient and we could kind of do whatever we wanted to do. And she was the one that we asked if we wanted somebody to say yes. And my dad was the one that, he would always say no. And so once they got divorced and we lived with my mom, next thing you know, it's like, there's no rules. And so now it's me, and I think I'm the man of the house now because my dad's no longer there. So Tim's the man of the house. I'm in 7th grade, and my two sisters and my mom. And I remember I got a girlfriend when I was in 7th grade, and she was allowed to stay out until midnight. So I would tell my mom I'm staying out until, and so I would, I started kind of doing whatever I wanted to do. Really, that was when my behavior was not good. I mean, for a kid. And that was when I started doing things. I started getting in trouble, and I started, when I was in 6th grade, I stole computers from my elementary school. I was the class president. So I was popular. I was the class president. And I had some friends that were not a very good influence. And, somehow we ended up breaking into the school and stealing computers. And we got caught. And so I was forced to resign as the class president. I got kicked out of that school, and I ended up having to go to a different school. And that was when I was in 6th grade. So I think that was kind of when my trouble started, actually, now that I think about it. I was still saying no to drugs, and there was no part of me that was ever going to do drugs or engage in drugs or alcohol or anything like that. I was totally against that until my parents actually did get divorced, and I lived up in Ventura or Oxnard. I had some friends that lived in Cerritos that were smoking pot. And so next thing you know, I go from being against doing drugs to, smoking pot as a 7th grader. And when we moved to Oxnard, it was, Cerritos was, I'd say, middle class, maybe upper middle class, and then predominantly Asian. And then we moved to Oxnard, which was, I would say, lower middle class, lower middle class. And I went to junior high at Rio de Valle, which was in El Rio, which was not a good area at all. And, there were not a lot of white kids. Most of the kids, it was predominantly Hispanic. And, I'm this kid, I have new clothes. I have, I take care of myself. I come from a different area. I come from a different class. And I go to school at RDV, and all the guys hate me. All the girls love me. And I'm this white kid with green eyes and new clothes. So I ended up getting in fights or getting picked on, really, and getting jumped. And it just ended up being so. Next thing you know, I start smoking pot. And I find people, and I'm trying to fit in. So I think I was still getting decent grades. It's like you go from an area that's predominantly Asian to an area that's predominantly Hispanic. It's just like the school system in Cerritos was a lot harder. The curriculum was a lot harder. And so school was really easy in Oxnard, and I was able to get good grades. And then I started smoking pot, and I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, I guess. And that kind of led me down that path.
Well, it's interesting. It shows how much of an influence our environment has on us. It's inescapable. You can't get away from it, really.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're absolutely. And I would say that's something that I'm super aware of today. I'm very aware of that today. And I don't think I was as aware. And I think as kids, we grow up and we grow up where we grow up, right? Our household is what it is. And in the school we go to, we don't really have a choice in who we hang out with. We're kind of hanging out with people that our parents want us to hang out with. Although growing up, I was always into sports. I played soccer. I played club soccer when I was in, elementary school. So like 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I played baseball, and I was always a good athlete. My dad was always by my side 100% of the time. He went to practices. He went to every single game. He was always there for myself and my sisters, for that matter. Sports was a big deal.
You had this goal in mind that you're going to go to school and do all these other things. Did that come from your parents, you think?
Yes. My mom didn't graduate from college. My dad didn't graduate from college. They both went to college, but they didn't graduate. My extended family, really not, prior to our generation, really people weren't, they weren't college graduates. And even our generation, I don't even think everybody went and graduated from college, but I think my mom always supported college. My dad, they both always supported college. And that was kind of the logical next step. That was what people did. You talk about college, and that's what you do after you graduate from high school, is you go to college. And so I always saw myself going to college. And when I was really, interesting, looking back at me in high school, I'm playing sports, I'm in honors classes, I'm getting good grades, and I'm ditching school and going to the beach and hanging out with people that did not get good grades and were not going to go to college. And so it was, I had lots of different groups of friends. I had, friends on the football team. So I had the athletes that I hung out with. I was taking honors classes. So I was hanging out with the smart kids. And then I had my kids that liked to go to the beach and ditch school and do drugs. So I had all these different groups of people, and I kind of would rotate.
Where'd you go to school at?
Oxnard High School is where I went to school. And then I graduated and I got recruited to play football at UC Davis. And Davis is in Sacramento. Are you asking about college?
Yeah, you had something happen though, right? Something pretty major happened in your life?
Yes, I did. I went to school at UC Davis my sophomore year. So April 19th, 1996 was the exact day. I was in a major car accident. It was picnic day. Picnic day is just a huge day at Davis where families come, and I think 400,000 people come to Davis on that day. And
400,000?
400,000, 500,000. It's probably more today, actually. It's a day to drink. It's a day to party. And I was in a fraternity. I was actually pledging a fraternity at that time. So I think I was a pledge. And we got up and we started drinking. And we drank all day long, and I remember a little bit of that day, but I think probably towards the end of the day is when I completely blacked out. I just don't remember anything. And I drank a lot. And I remember I ended up trying to drive home, which home is in Oxnard. It's 400 miles away. And I guess, according to some people, they said that I was going to drive back to Oxnard. And they didn't take me seriously. I have no clue how I got to this day, I have no clue how I got from my fraternity house to my condo or to my apartment, which is where my car was. I don't know how I got there. I drove for a couple of hours. I ended up falling asleep. I flipped over 3 times, got flown in a helicopter to San Jose Medical Center. I was there for 3 or 4 days. I was in ICU. And then they flew me down to St. John's in Oxnard, and I was there for 28 days. I was under 24-hour care for 28 days. And then I moved to a transitional living center for brain injured adults. It was in Santa Barbara. And then I took disability classes at Ventura College for about 6 weeks. So I don't remember anything for about 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of my life, I don't remember anything. It was a really traumatic event. And it probably took me 2 years to recover from that. I was mentally not all there. And I remember they've got this little journal, and they would write about what I said that day. And there's one of the entries, and somebody said that, it's like, I thought I was 8 years old one day. I thought I was 56 years old the next day. I thought I was 11 years old. So I was completely all over the place. And my mind was just, they didn't know if I was ever going to come back. They didn't know if I was ever going to recover. And Dr. Judy was the doctor at the time. I remember I hated Dr. Judy because he said I couldn't drink and I would never be, and of course I hated him, right? Yeah, he was telling me he was speaking the truth. And of course, I think he probably said I was an alcoholic, and I was like, no way, that's crazy. I just like to drink. And even after this crazy car accident, right, which I was drinking, I was intoxicated. So that's why I was blacked out. I never got a DUI, though. I think they thought I was probably not going to make it. If you look at my car, it doesn't look like the person that was in that car is still alive. It was really, really bad.
So they didn't want to take the time to arrest you, probably.
Yeah, I guess. They wanted to, insult to injury, I don't know. I'm not sure. It was just, I was completely, I was maybe not going to make it.
Well, to have that kind of brain injury obviously would affect your thinking, but for most people, if something like that would happen to them, they would quit drinking, quit everything, and change their life completely. But you didn't.
No, not even close. Not even close. People were like, oh, at that time. And at that time, I kind of turned into an atheist when I was in college. I remember thinking, it's like you have all these people and all these different religions, and you've got Muslims and you've got, Jews and Christians and Catholics and Buddhas, and everybody thinks everybody else is going to hell. And especially when going to UC Davis, there's more diversity as far as religion goes in college. So I was just like, okay, I don't believe in any of it. And so I kind of became an atheist, and I didn't really believe in anything. And so you have my aunts and my uncles, and they tell a story. I don't remember, of course, but the pastor was praying for me in the hospital room. And like halfway through the prayer, I'd say, in Jesus' name, amen. And everybody would kind of look at each other and like, okay, I guess we're done with the prayer. I think I did that on more than one occasion too.
Kind of like a spite?
No, it wasn't. I was mentally not there. I was ready to be done with the prayer, I guess. I don't know. I was impatient, ADD, who knows? But regardless, again, my family is Christian, and all throughout college, I think I was more of atheist. Definitely.
So you had this major brain injury, but you were still going to school?
Yes, they let me go back to school at UC Davis, which was, they did not want to let me go back, actually. It was so the accident was in April, and then I'm recovering, and then I was in summer school at Ventura College. And then I remember just fighting for them to let me go back to UC Davis, and they let me go. And I knew, and again, as you mentioned earlier, environment's everything, right? And I knew that I had to get out of there. I knew that I couldn't stay in Oxnard. It was just not a good place for me. The environment was not a good place for me. I had too many friends that were not going down the path that I wanted to go down. I mean, that's not where I wanted my life to go. And so I fought, and they let me go back to school at UC Davis. And because of my brain injury, they gave me extra time to take tests. You know, I got some special accommodations because of my disability. That's what they considered. And I just remember how hard school was. School was really, really hard once I got back to school, and a lot harder than it was prior to. And so, yeah, I went back to school at UC Davis and worked hard.
So you were going to school, something happened at that time, not that it was bad, but you got involved in something that you feel like has had a big influence in your life.
So when I was a freshman year in college, there was this internship, and the company was called Student Works Painting, and they changed the name to Varsity Painting later. So I ran a house painting business over the summer. And that was what I did my freshman year. And, you know, I did all my own sales and marketing and advertising, recruiting, interviewing. I hired my own employees. I ended up essentially running a business over the summer. And so that really was just an awesome way I learned how to make money. I learned how to make money. I learned how to run a business. I learned how to be a manager. I learned how to be a boss. I learned so much, and I worked my ass off. And my first summer, that freshman year, I did $65,000 worth of work. I don't know. I made 20 grand, 25 grand, something like that, which was quite a bit of money for a college student, especially for somebody like me, because the summer before, I made $4.25 an hour making ski ropes at some little shop that made ski ropes. So it was a huge jump for me, and it was great. And so after my car accident, I started doing that again. And I started the marketing and the advertising in January of 1997, right? And that was kind of what kicked me back into gear. I don't think without Student Works, without Bars, I don't know. I mean, because that was really what got my brain working again. I mean, it's just like if you break your arm or break your leg, if you don't start working your leg, if you don't get back in the gym, if you don't start walking, if you don't start running, you're never going to build your leg back up. And so for me, it was getting my brain working. You know, being in school was one thing, but then actually running a business and having to work and having to do, you know, all of the things that you have to do to run a business was awesome. And my second year was amazing. I did $90,000 worth of business. I probably made 30 grand or over 30 grand. I was the manager of the year. I did really, really well. And that was kind of the start, or not the start, but that College Works or Student Works was a huge part of my life. And after that, I got promoted. I became a district manager. I was a district manager for a couple of years again. I had managers, and each of the managers had their own little business in their own little town or in a town. Probably did $500,000 worth of business my second year, my third year, or my first year as a district manager. And then the next year as a district manager, I did, I don't know, probably 550 or so.
Well, what you were earning for your age was quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I was making money.
Was that the attraction, or did you just love running a business?
God, I don't know. I mean, I've always been a salesman. I've always liked to sell. So it gave me the opportunity to sell. It gave me the opportunity to delegate. I think growing up, I learned how to delegate to my sisters, especially my older sister. My older sister, I could get her to do anything for me, which was, she was just such a sweetheart. We have just an amazing relationship even today. And she's always, I've always been able to get her to do stuff for me. And I'm thinking, I've always been good at getting people to do stuff for me.
But you still were drinking and drugging excessively?
Yeah. So once I got into college, I never pursued football at all. And I just kind of went down the path of being a college student, and I drank and I partied and I went to school, and that was kind of what I did. And I always blacked out. I always was the guy that was the most wasted. And that was kind of how it always was. And I was able to kind of bounce back from it. And alcohol was mainly what I did. I didn't really like to smoke pot at all. I mean, I had a brief period stint in high school where I smoked a lot of pot, but then that's kind of it. Pot made me paranoid, and I didn't really like to do it. I like to drink. Drinking was kind of my deal. So it was mostly drinking throughout college. It was drinking. I was working hard, doing student works thing and the painting thing. And my grades were pretty decent. So I was still a smart kid. I was able to kind of do what I needed to do to graduate. I mean, I don't really remember. Quite honestly, I don't know how I graduated, but I did.
Because of the partying or because of the brain injury? Both.
Yeah,
right.
Both.
You were taking a revolver and playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, looking back at college, that was when I got busted for doing a beer run. A friend and I did a beer run. We ran out the emergency exit of Lucky's in Davis, and there was a cop there, and my friend ran away and I got caught. And then I didn't tell who my friend was, so I got arrested and charged with theft or as a felony misdemeanor. So I had to serve time in jail. And when I was in jail, I got in a fight with a guy, and then I ended up going into solitary confinement. So here I am, this 19-year-old college student at UC Davis, or 20 years old, and I'm in jail. And I'm and I'm in solitary confinement. So that happened. I got arrested for drunk in public once. I got a DUI. I mean, there were several. I remember when I had to do community service, I showed up and I smelled like alcohol from the night before. And I think they ended up arresting me, and I ended up having to spend the night in jail. I don't know. I mean, a bunch of crazy stuff that happens when you drink. And those things happened to me.
And it still wasn't enough to get you to say, something's not working.
No way. I think it was always somebody else's fault. I like to drink. I had to take these DUI classes, and I remember there was a guy that was our teacher or facilitator of the class, and he looked at me and he's like, "You're an alcoholic." I'm like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "You're an alcoholic." "Yes, you are." And he was an alcoholic. I mean, people that are alcoholics a lot of times end up working in treatment or teaching the classes and so forth. So it's like an alcoholic can spot an alcoholic. And I don't remember what it was about me. Maybe I showed up hungover, or maybe the stories I told. I don't know.
Well, when did enough get to be enough? When did you hit your bottom, as they say in the 12-step programs?
So for me, I had several bottoms. Once I graduated from college, my drinking escalated to other drugs. And I started doing GHB and ecstasy. I OD'd several times. And then I started doing cocaine. And so that became my deal. And then I got fired from student works, which remember was a humongous part of my life. And that was when I lived in Newport Beach, moved up to Northern California, back to Northern California, got back into the painting business, and ran a business with a guy. And then I started up College Works, which was a competitor to Varsity or Student Works. And I started up the Northern California division. And I did that for 3 years. And again, I did really, really well. I was making great money. My third year, I did really well. But we had our corporate retreats kind of in places like Miami and Vegas and Park City and Cancun. And I was always the guy that was the most wasted. And I always blacked out. And I always was just a disaster. And I got fired from College Works. My life kind of fell apart. And after that, my then girlfriend, Jennifer, and I moved to Arizona. And so we kind of continued, and I would drink, and normally I wouldn't always drink to blackout, but a lot of times I would drink to blackout and bad things would happen, and I would end up staying out all night with one of my friends or something like that. And so one weekend, a good friend of mine, his name's Sep, he was a friend from college, he was my best man at my wedding. He came out to Arizona. It was supposed to be a couples weekend, and he was going to bring his wife, and it was going to be me and my wife and him and his wife. And he, like a week before, God, it might have been a few days before, he sends me an email. And this is in March of 2011. He says, "Hey, Tim, B," that's his wife, "B's not going to come. Something for work came up. So it's just going to be me. And then I think Cameron might come too." And I'm like, oh, God, you got to be kidding me. So I go to my wife, Jennifer, and I tell her that B's not coming and that it's just going to be Sep and maybe Cameron. And she was so pissed. She thought that we planned it that way the whole entire time. And she didn't think there was ever a couples weekend. And so Sep stayed at the W in Old Town Scottsdale. So I stayed at the W with Sep in Old Town Scottsdale. And we just, that whole weekend was drinking and golf and strip clubs and just shenanigans the whole entire weekend. After that weekend, some things happened that she found out about, and she left me. She said, "We're separated. And, the only way I will consider taking you back is if you never, ever drink again. You go to rehab." And I was like, okay. So that was kind of when I decided, I said, okay, I'm not going to go to rehab, but I'll get sober. I'll go to AA. And so Tuesday, March 8th, 2011 was the very first meeting that I ever went to. I don't know if I would say that was when I made the decision to get sober forever. I think the decision then was, I gotta get sober for a little bit so I can get my wife back. I mean, that was it. It wasn't a long-term solution. It was just let me get sober for a little bit. I'll go to AA. I'll do these AA classes, and we'll see. And I remember showing up to my very first meeting, and it was a 7 p.m. meeting, and it was at 4141. It was called the Birthday Cake Meeting, 42nd Street in Thomas in Phoenix. And I remember pulling into the parking lot and just looking at a bunch of guys outside of the room, and they're all just laughing, and they have these huge smiles on their faces, and the energy is just amazing. And I'm sitting there in my car, and I'm just crying. I'm just crying because I'm like, my life is about to change, and it's devastating. And so I walk into the meeting, and everybody is friendly, and they're introducing themselves to me. And what they did at this meeting, or they do at a lot of the meetings, is if you're a newcomer, you have to stand up and tell them who you are. And so I stood up and said, "My name's Tim, and I'm an alcoholic." And that was the first time in my life that I'd ever said that. And I just cried. And then I sat down in my chair, and I sat next to a guy named Michael. And at this meeting, they call newcomers up to the podium. We're probably 30 or 40 people in this room. And so I go to the front and I tell them the story of what happened over the weekend. And they're all laughing. They're laughing, and I'm crying, and they're laughing, and I'm crying. That was the very first meeting that I ever went to. And several people came up to me after the meeting, introduced themselves. I felt so welcomed. I felt like I was at home. And one guy gave me a big book, and they said, "You need to go to a meeting every single day, get a big book, get a sponsor." And so the next day, I went to Prince Peace, and I got a sponsor my second day. And that's kind of how my recovery journey started.
So your sponsor is like a mentor to you for sobriety. Can you explain that relationship and how that works?
So a sponsor is a guy who takes a sponsee through the steps. And so my sponsor did step work with me, because it's one thing just to go to an AA meeting, and it's another thing to actually do the work. And what they say is you have to do the work if you want to get sober and stay sober. You have to do the work. And this is really like digging in and doing the steps. And so that was what I did, is I did the work. And I met with my sponsor on a weekly basis. I did step work. The first step is I'm powerless. And then step 2 and step 3. And then the 4th step, which is when you do your inventory. And so my sponsor is a guy or a gal. Typically it's the same gender. The sponsor is the same gender, typically. And the sponsor is there to be a mentor, to be a guide spiritually, and take a person through the steps.
Most people are familiar with 12-step program, but if someone had never heard about it, how would you describe the 12-step program in just a few words or sentences?
The 12-step program it's a spiritual program. It's a program of honesty. It's a way of living. And for me, I've learned how to live life differently because of the 12 steps. I've learned how to live an honest life because of the 12 steps. I've learned to get out of myself. I've learned to be of service. I've learned, I have so much peace and serenity and gratitude in my life today because of the 12 steps. Without the 12 steps, I don't know where I would be. I'm so happy and so grateful today. And the 12 steps is really where it started. I've done other things, and I continue to do other things beyond the 12 steps, which are huge compliments to my 12-step program. But the 12-step program is where it started for me.
That's the foundation?
That's my foundation, absolutely. And I still go to meetings today. I sponsor guys. I still talk to my sponsor on a regular basis. I take guys through the steps. I have a home group. I have a service commitment. I'm still connected. I mean, it's like staying fit. I mean, they say you have to be spiritually fit. If you're not spiritually fit, you might go out and drink, or your behavior changes. And I would say more than anything, your behavior changes if you get away from the steps, or if you get away from AA, or if you get away from the program. And so I stay connected because I love my life today, and I don't ever want to go back to living the way that I lived before. I don't ever want to have that emptiness that I had in my life before. My life is so full. The relationships that I have today are just amazing. I have lots of men in my life that I have close, intimate relationships with. And I can't say that was true prior to getting sober at all, not even close. You know, going back to like my childhood, growing up, my dad was very much walled off, you know, and I think it was maybe that generation, men weren't intimate, and it was more so, you know, men are tough and men don't cry, and you don't need to share intimate feelings or anything like that, which is not true today. Not true for me. I can be vulnerable. I can be emotional. I've gone through so many things in recovery, and I've cried at meetings. And I'm not afraid to cry. I'm not afraid to cry in front of a group of men at all.
Well, I still have issues with that.
I mean, you know, it can't be just anybody. But, you know, no, I would say that I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. I've got no issues crying in front of people.
Well, I think that's important because, like, you and I are pretty close in age. That generation, you know, my dad didn't show any emotion, not even towards my mom.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And, you know, and so, you know, those imprints at that early age are so critical, and we live them the rest of our lives. And I catch myself, I don't know about you, but I catch myself from time to time doing things that my dad did. I have no idea, completely unconsciously doing it. Like, wait a minute, that's what my dad used to do. What's going on?
Right. I definitely can relate. I can see myself. Again, I'm pretty aware of myself and my actions and my behaviors these days. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, you know, that's something my dad would do. And my dad and I have a lot of similarities. And I can remember I don't know if we sound alike or our demeanor is similar. I'm not exactly sure, but there are, you know, like I can remember my Aunt Margie saying, I called my Aunt Margie, who's my grandma's sister. I'd call her and she'd say, "Is this Dennis?" I'm like, "No, this is Tim." I don't think we sound that much alike, but I think it was us kind of sounding alike, along with just the tone.
Now, your recovery was in 2011. You've done more than most. You've actually started a Camelback Recovery. Can you explain that journey a little bit? What led you to that?
That's when I moved to Phoenix. I started up, we moved to Phoenix and I made some money before I moved to Phoenix. I got fired from College Works, but I owned 30% of that division. So I made some money on that. I flipped a couple of homes. So I made some money on that. So I moved to Arizona and I ended up buying several homes in the area. And then that was 2006 when I moved here. So I ended up, the plan was to flip these homes and make millions in real estate, but that, 2006, 7, 8, that clearly was not going to happen at that time.
Didn't work out too well.
So I ended up starting a vacation rental company. Started this vacation rental company. So I had lots of homes that I managed. I think we got up to like 65 homes and, housekeeping department, maintenance department. It was a pretty decent operation, and some things happened and I ended up having to get out of the vacation rental business. And that's another podcast or another story. And so in getting out of the vacation rental business, one of my homes, I leased out to a couple of women. And then I found out they were in recovery. I was like, oh, wow, you're in recovery. I'm in recovery. Wow, this is great. And then I found out that they turned my home into a recovery home for women. And I was like, whoa. Today I believe that everything happens exactly the way that it's supposed to. God's in control. I'm not in control. And I found out when I was supposed to find out. And I was like, wow, okay, so the bills are always paid. They never complain. They take care of the home. This could be a good thing. And we had another home, a home that I owned with my dad and my stepmom. There was something that we were trying to figure out what to do with that home. So I ended up, so I'm getting out of the vacation rental business, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next with my life. We've got this other home we're trying to figure out what to do with. There's this sober living business, which is a possibility. It's a way for me to give back, be of service, and help others, and also hold me accountable, to be quite honest. So that was kind of how I ended up opening up my first recovery home. So we opened up our first home. We took our first client in about April of 2014. And that was kind of the start of it. That was what led me to opening up my first home.
Now, were you angry with these women for starting a recovery home without telling you?
No, not again. It's like maybe I would have been. But no, I'm in recovery. I believe everything happens the way it's supposed to. I still see them today around, and one of them's a therapist, and her name's Mina, and she took a job over at the Meadows being a therapist. And she's like, Tim, I was still really sick. So she was newly recovering, and she, because they didn't disclose it to me, but whatever. Again, I found out when I was supposed to find out. She didn't even know I was in recovery. Sometimes it's not easy. Like, people have this stigma around what a recovery home is, and they have a picture in their mind of addicts hanging from ceilings and breaking windows and doing drugs at the house and throwing needles away. Which is just not the case. There are some bad actors out there which have given the sober living business a bad name, but that's not normal, I would say.
Well, people, would they come to your place, especially because they have to pay 3 months up in advance?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So our program is solid, in my opinion, and I would say we're regarded as the best sober living in Arizona. And there are lots of things that we do that I guess help our program. And one of the things is we require 3 months up front of payment. So people have to put financially, they have to pay for 3 months. And when somebody pays for 3 months, it's like people follow their money. And I'll tell you what, if I'm paying to stay somewhere for 3 months, like, I'm going to follow the rules. And that's what happens is people pay for 3 months because, as well as I know, they get sober, they're like, yes, I want to get sober. I will do anything. I will do anything. I will work a 12-step program. I will go to a meeting every single day. I will get a sponsor. I will get a home group. I will get a service commitment. I will get up in the morning. I will make my bed. I will do my chore. I will get a job, or I will do something 30 hours a week. I'll come home by curfew. I'll get drug tested 2 times a week. And they're completely on board. But then in a couple of weeks, maybe something happens. They get in a fight with the house manager. They don't like being held accountable. They don't want to go to a meeting every single day. They've figured it out. They don't really need, then they could potentially act out, drink, use, whatever. That's when we can remind them, okay, well, if you don't follow the rules, you're going to get written up. And we do write them up, or house managers do write them up. And if they get written up, then, potentially they can get kicked out. And they get 3 write-ups, they get kicked out. If they relapse, they're going to leave for at least 72 hours. And that's the first time. The second time, they need a higher level of care. And they're not getting a refund. It's not because we want to keep their money. They don't get a refund because that's their consequence. There are consequences to not following rules. There are consequences to a relapse. And that's just kind of how it is. And we found that works out really well. It keeps people in line. And the result being, in 3 months, they're in a way better place, physically, mentally, spiritually. And a lot of times they end up sticking around for, longer. Our success rate is really high. We don't have relapses very often at all. And a lot of recovery homes, they accept payments weekly, and which there's a place for everybody. And it's not to say a place that accepts weekly payments is bad by any means at all. Some people can't afford more than 1 week at a time. But it's always, that creates a revolving door, because anytime somebody wants to leave, or they get a sudden itch to drink or use or not follow rules or whatever, they can just leave, and there are no consequences. Where if somebody leaves one of our homes, one of the Camelback Recovery homes, there are consequences.
So what do you do there beyond just, requiring people go to meetings and what have you? What are some of the systems you have that you think lead to your great success?
That's a good question. There are several. I don't know if there's specifically one thing, but there are several things that we do that I believe make our program stronger than others. Number one, our house managers are full-time employees. They're full-time W-2 employees. Their full-time job is to take care of the women or the men. Our homes are all gender specific. Their full-time job is to take care of that home and to facilitate recovery. That's what they get paid to do. So it's not like they're just getting free rent to hang out at the house. So their full-time job is to take care of that home. Number two, we provide all food and all meals. And so we take a holistic approach to recovery. And food and diet and nutrition is such an important part of recovery. And a lot of times these people that are newly recovering, they don't want a plate full of broccoli. They don't want to eat healthy food. And they want to eat a frozen pizza or a burrito or Taco Bell or McDonald's. And that's just not conducive for brain recovery. Your brain needs to recover. You have brain damage, really. From all of the drinking and using and all the bad stuff that's been put in your brain. So our brains need to be brought back to life, I guess. And so we provide all meals. So dinner's prepared 5 nights a week, breakfast, lunch, that's all provided. So that's all included in our cost. That's one of the things that I believe helps. We also require 5 units of self-care per week. So that means that a person is doing yoga, going to the gym, hiking Camelback Mountain, going to the dentist, things that people that are in their addiction typically don't do. So they have to learn how to take care of themselves. Everybody's out of bed in the morning by 8 o'clock at the latest, bed's made, chores done. So they're on a normal sleeping schedule. They're getting enough sleep. They're eating the right food, getting enough nutrients. They're exercising. They're into fitness. And they have to work a 12-step program, which is the most important. The most important thing is that they're working a 12-step program. And that means they have a sponsor. They're working the steps. They're going to meetings, home group, service commitment. And we're able to hold them accountable to all these things. And because our house managers are full-time W-2 employees, they are able to facilitate all of these things. But then we're also a social model, which means that everybody is holding everybody accountable. If you walk into one of the Camelback Recovery homes, the homes are just, the energy is awesome. I mean, you go in there, it's like, wow, this is, for somebody that wants to be in recovery, that's where, you know what I mean? You can feel the energy when you walk into a room or in a house, right?
Sure.
And so you've been to my homes. I mean, what's the energy like when you walk into them?
It's very nice. It's very calm. I find it peaceful, and I am surprised that, especially a bunch of people living together, there's always going to be some kind of conflict, but I don't feel it or sense it when I've been to one of your places.
Right. And that's how it is, because it's real recovery. Everybody wants to be there. That's the other thing. When we require 3 months up front, people that don't really want to be sober, they don't want to come to our house. They screen themselves out. Typically, people that don't want to be sober don't want to come to our house. I mean, I've seen it. We've done tours, and I mean, you can see it in their eyes. They're like, this is not for me. And it's like, okay, you're not ready. It's like, okay, good luck.
So you recently, started doing, is it Ironman competitions?
Yeah, I started in 2016. So I have a friend, his name's Walter. He says, hey, I'm doing Ironman. You should come and check it out. And so I went and that was November 2016. I watched him do Ironman. And prior to that, the most since high school, literally the most I'd run is a couple miles. It's like I was doing CrossFit, I was doing yoga, I was hiking. I was fit, but I was not an endurance athlete by any means. The long run day in a CrossFit class is like a mile, right? And let alone running a marathon. I mean, I never in my life had I ever thought about running a marathon or swimming. I didn't swim and I didn't bike. I did spin. So I thought, okay, I could probably bike. But I go to this Ironman and just the energy was amazing. It was just amazing. And I remember being there, looking around at all these people that were doing Ironman, and you had literally people that were old, young, skinny, fat, missing legs, missing arms, it's just like, I'm looking around at these people and they're just like average looking people and people with handicaps. And I'm like, you know what? I could freaking do this. So that was kind of when the seed was planted. And then my first quarter goal, that was November of 2015. So January of 2016, I made my first quarter physical goal was to do a triathlon. So I did a triathlon and a little sprint, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I can do that. And then I did an Olympic, and then I did another Olympic. So I ended up doing 5 triathlons in 2016. And at the end of 2016, I said, okay, I want to do Ironman, which was just like a big deal. It was a really big deal. And so it's been another thing that I get to focus my time and my energy on, and I love it. And I did Ironman in November of 2017 in Arizona, and I'm signed up. I ended up doing pretty well, and now I want to do it again. I mean, it's another thing I'm just, I have an addictive personality, and that's kind of what you have to, that's kind of what you have to have in order to train for. I mean, it's like I work out a couple times a day, and weekends it's like I'm spending hours upon hours running, biking, and swimming. And 2017, when I trained for Ironman, was like I had seen the most growth in my business. 2017 was a huge year for me in many areas of my life. I mean, my business grew significantly. I hired some key employees, and it went from being just a little owner operator business to being like a real business, and doing real, generating real revenue. And it was amazing. I'm in a relationship today. I started that relationship, and it's the most healthy awesome relationship I've ever been in my life. And her name's Michelle, and she's amazing. I'm so grateful for her and for my Ironman journey. And now I'm still doing it, and I'm still doing triathlons. So I'm going to do Ironman again this upcoming year. And I get to spend weekends, I travel, I go to like San Diego, or I'm going to Santa Rosa in July for a half Ironman. And then I'm going to do the full Ironman here in Arizona again in November 2018.
That's quite a journey from where you were and all those years of madness, which is what I would describe it. I think that's a fair assessment.
I would say that madness is chaos. I mean, I was thinking about that before. It's like I was addicted to chaos. Everything was chaos. And today I do a very good job of staying centered, and I still have the tendency to attract chaos or create chaos, but I get up in the morning, I pray, I meditate, I do a gratitude list, and that's how I start pretty much every single day. And Michelle and we get to do that together a lot of times. So it's a way for us to connect and start our day by being in gratitude, and then the day starts.
One of my favorite quotes, I think it's Howard Ward Beecher. It's the first hour is the rudder of the day. And I found that to be, that first hour, it sets the tone for the whole rest of your day.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. I like to get up early, and it's really important for me. And a lot of times I work out first thing in the morning too. Like I'll go on a ride, or I'll go for a run or something.
That's awesome. What do you see for your future in Camelback Recovery? And then last thing is, for someone that's out there in the abyss, like you were, like many are, what would you say to them? What would you say to you now if you could talk to your old self? Do you think there's anything you could say to yourself?
No, there's nothing I could say to myself. And because my journey was my journey. My journey was my journey, and I wasn't searching for answers. I didn't want to make a change. I liked the chaos. And maybe I could have started searching for a spiritual answer sooner. I started doing yoga when I first got sober as well, which is another thing that's been just a huge compliment to my recovery and a huge program to my 12-step program. So that was a way for me to start connecting spiritually and working on my spiritual fitness. Really, it's like I wasn't ready to work on my spiritual fit. I don't know, Rich. I wish I had an answer. And I think you're asking me, how can I get through to somebody that doesn't want to be sober? And I have not found the answer to that.
You got to let go, right? You got to let go of that idea that there is something I can do, and then you just have to let things go as they go. Is that a fair assessment?
That's absolutely a fair assessment. It's just like, I sponsor guys, I carry the message, I go to meetings, I share, and I'm an active member of AA today. I'm active and I sponsor guys because I want to stay sober. And I've sponsored lots of guys that have gone back out. And that's just what happens, and that's part of their journey. And it's a good reminder for me, and especially being in the recovery business, I see lots of people that go back out, and I see their behavior, and it's like, wow, okay, that was me. That was me when I was in high school. That was me when I was in college. That was me when I was, and so I can see myself in other people. And that's one of the gifts of carrying the message and giving back, is being able to see these reminders. So yeah, there's no way to make somebody, there's no way to make somebody listen to me. I can tell you that much. I'm a controlling person. I've learned by being in recovery, I've learned that I don't need to be in control. I'm not in control. God's in control. And that's just such a comforting feeling, knowing that I don't have to be in control of whether or not a person does get sober, or whether or not a person goes to a meeting, or whether or not a person calls me back, or whether or not a person pays me back, or whether or not, none of these things are in my control, and I don't have to put energy on it. And it's just because me having to be in control is exhausting. It's overwhelming. It's just, for me to not be in control and me to be powerless like life is simple. Things are easy. I just kind of do the next right thing.
I don't think there's any better way to end than on that note.
Right.
Just do the next best thing or next right thing and let go, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Well, Tim, thank you for joining us and sharing your hero's journey. It's an awesome story, and I'm sure anyone that listens to this will be as inspired as I've been from your story. What I'm amazed is how much the craziness in your life, but you still always find success. That's what's amazing. You keep going. You keep going. The drive. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from, but I keep on moving forward, and I can say that I'm just super grateful today. I stay centered. I stay grounded. I got so many good things. And I truly appreciate that you have given me the opportunity to share my story. So thank you.
Thank you again for listening. And please leave any comments or suggestions. We're always looking for ways to improve our show and make it the best show it can possibly be. Visit mindfulaccord.com, where you can find additional episodes and you can follow our blog. We give some helpful information on mindfulness, meditation, and just ways to manage our everyday stressful lives. And most importantly, if you know of a friend or a family member that would benefit from this story, please share it with them. Until next time, I'm Rich Decker.